Joining us now, former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. Here we are, final day. How you feeling?
Listen, I'm feeling great. Let me start by saying everybody listening to us should go to foxnews.com and get Pat Caddell's absolutely amazing article on his analysis of what's happening and why he believes Trump will win in a landslide. You know, Caddell was Jimmy Carter's pollster, and there's always been a populist, and his article is as stunning as anything I've read all year long, and sort of confirms my bias, which is that Trump will win tomorrow. But a couple of quick things. You may have already covered this because you certainly know as much or more than I do about these things. I just look around. I look at 538 this morning coming out and saying they believe that Trump will carry Florida. I look at CNN, of all places, coming out and saying they believe, based on their early voting analysis, that Trump will carry North Carolina. I look at the Denver Post a few minutes ago, which just came out and said that the Republicans passed the Democrats over the weekend in early voting. And I look at the newest poll out of Pennsylvania, which shows Trump up by 1, which may not be enough to overcome vote theft in Philadelphia, but is certainly a remarkable turnaround.
Well, Michigan,
from 2
too.
weeks ago.
And Michigan is in play as well. And look, you've been the one that's been saying it for weeks. I never believed it. But I'm beginning to believe, that, especially because of Obamacare in a state like Minnesota, that, and they have a history for voting for outsiders, that there's Minnesota may be in play more than we think. Look, I am...
That's right. The state that gave you Jesse Ventura as governor could vote for Donald Trump.
That would be amazing. Let me start with what happened over the weekend and James Comey saying that he had seen no evidence. You know, here's a guy that it took him 270 days to go through 32,000 emails, but he was able to, in record time, review 650,000 new emails in 8 days. It's pretty talented, don't you think?
Oh, you know what makes it funnier? The State Department today said it was going to take them 5 years. 5 years to go through 33,000 emails.
Yeah.
Now, explain to me how the FBI could go through 650,000 in 8 days, and the State Department can't do it can't do 10% of that in less than 5 years.
Look,
I mean, this is an absurdity, and it just tells you that the corruption, you know, as my good friend Randy Evans points out, the corruption is a cancer, and if you don't cut it out, it keeps growing. And we're now seeing how a corrupt Justice Department is beginning to corrupt the FBI, and that's genuinely frightening, because if law enforcement becomes corrupted, you don't have the rule of law.
No, you've lost your country. Let's be honest. And what's fascinating, either one or two people are lying. Either James Comey's lying or the FBI rank and file are lying, and I'm putting my money that the rank and file is trying to tell us the truth.
Absolutely. And it's sad. I don't know what happened to Comey. I don't know if it was just the sheer pressure from the president and the attorney general, but this whole thing is an absurdity. And by the way, I had several people who you know well, Vince Haley and who wrote, and Ross Worthington, who wrote me a memo the day Comey said they were reopening the case. They wrote me a memo that said, this is a trap, and he will come back on the weekend before the election and announce that everything has been cleared. Now, they wrote me that 8 or 9 days before it happened, and I thought that was pretty remarkably prescient on their part. And their argument was that the whole thing was a setup to try to give Hillary one last boost.
You know, it's really amazing to me. You have sort of very gently, in a sort of big brotherly type way, you know, been chastising me every time I look at the more conventional path to 270 and saying that all bets are off this election. Now, I do think there's a certain amount of conventional behavior that'll take place. I think all of the Romney states will go for Trump. I really believe that, including North Carolina, which is the one that Clintons have played the hardest for. I mean, we're now plus 142,000 where we were this time in 2012 in North Carolina. We're plus 130,000 in Florida. We're plus 7,300 now in Colorado. And, you know, look, from my perspective, it's all about 270. To get to 270, Donald Trump needs to win Florida, Ohio, North Carolina, and Iowa. We got to start there. He can't lose any one of those states. And then from there...
So let's stipulate. He's going to win all four.
I'm more worried about Florida. Why do I worry more than you do?
Well, look, I first of all, I don't worry very much. And second, I've been through a lot of elections.
Yeah.
I just know that when Trump went back to Florida and told everybody it was a second home, that he crushed the senator from
Marco
Florida.
Rubio. Yeah.
Think about this. But think about it. I mean, here's a good guy, home state senator, very popular guy, and when Marco ran into the Trump operation, he just couldn't compete with him in Florida. So I start from there. Second, I believe that Matt Towery has written a very extensive memo. Matt knows Florida. He's done polling there for 40 years. He says if you look at where the turnout's really going up, it is really going up among white voters who are conservative, almost making the case people made after Romney lost, that there really was 5 or 10 million additional votes out there that simply were turned off. Now, you see this, by the way, in Ohio, because where Romney really underperformed in Ohio was in the Ohio River Valley, which is a very blue-collar area. Well, Trump is running up enormous margins in that part of the state. I just was talking a little while ago with Reince Priebus, because Calista and I were driving across part of central Wisconsin, and Reince was saying that the area we were driving through, Ron Johnson is carrying it. Congressman Duffy's getting reelected in a landslide, and Trump is carrying it by a substantial margin. And so you start seeing these places build, and I know Florida reasonably well, and I would be very surprised to see Trump not carry Florida. So let's stipulate. Even CNN now says he's going to carry North Carolina. Everybody agrees he's going to carry Ohio, and he's going to carry Iowa. And let's stipulate for your purposes he's going to carry Florida. That already makes him dramatically more successful than Mitt Romney was. And I say that to remind all the never-Trumpers that everything they said about Trump as a candidate was wrong. Not only is he not Barry Goldwater, not only is he not going to get crushed, we're now arguing about how much better than Romney he will be, not whether he will be better.
I hope it's all true. Look, if you would have told me even 2 weeks ago that he'd be fighting hard in Pennsylvania and Michigan and maybe even Minnesota, I wouldn't have believed it. Here's my path.
Wait a second. I told you 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I know you said. Why do you have to? I told you.
Fighting everywhere. I told you 2 weeks ago.
You did.
You will be fighting virtually everywhere.
And I told you Obama was going to be horrible, and you thought I was a mean person.
I know you were. Sadly, you were right there.
A little known fact: Newt calls me at once, and you said to me, "Wow, you're really hitting him hard. You better be careful."
Yeah.
Listen, I go all in. I'm all in my friendships. I'm all in life. I don't hold back. It's who I am. It's the way I'll always be. But I think he's got to, if he wins those states, Florida, North Carolina, I'm not taking them for granted. Ohio, I'm not taking it for granted. Iowa, I'm not taking it for granted, but I think he will. But, we're still looking at 2 or 3 point margins here. That's how close it is. Right. If anybody thinks their vote doesn't matter, it matters in a big way. Then we've got to now hold all the states that Mitt Romney won, and now we got to start flipping a few, like Nevada, which, by the way, I don't like the early voting numbers in Nevada. Colorado, I am happy with the early vote numbers, but it's very close. I could see Colorado. We're not knowing the number for how long. I don't know. So I'd like to see Colorado. I'd like to see New Hampshire. And then if we could take Pennsylvania and throw it over the top, then we get into landslide territory.
All right. And then you'd like to pick up Michigan, and you'd like to pick up Wisconsin and maybe Minnesota. Yeah,
no, I totally agree with you. Look, I think all of that would be great.
And at that point, you have the national elite in a state of total stupor, sitting there staring at the wall, wondering what happened to the country that they were dominating, because this would be a new and a very different America.
It would be new, good, and different in a positive way. Look,
that's exactly right.
I keep breaking down what this election is about. This is not very complicated. It is, to me, it's about, all right, do we want originalists on the Supreme Court, or are we going to put the hardcore left judicial activists that Hillary will put on? Do we want refugees increased to 550%? Or do we want to vet them so we know that if they come from countries and cultures that have values that are the antithesis of our constitutional values, that will keep America safe first, and then we can help people with safe zones, etc. Do we want to build a wall so we don't have competition for jobs and that Al-Qaeda or ISIS doesn't cross our open border? And then it becomes about the economy, raising taxes or lowering taxes, eliminating Obamacare, keeping Obamacare, coal miners out of work, coal companies out of business or not. All the things you and I have discussed. I won't go through the list again, but there's profound differences here. Profound.
Well, first of all, this is the biggest choice election of my lifetime.
It really is.
The difference in the two directions is astonishing. The difference in the signal it will send about what kind of America we want to be is astonishing. And I think that a lot of that, we have to admit, Donald Trump made possible. Without his courage and without his willingness to go out there and be this extraordinary first-time candidate who just said what he believed, and while he made mistakes on occasion, the authenticity of having him tell the truth as he understood it has created a genuine movement. I mean, this is not something small. This is a genuine movement. Those of us who care about it are going to have to sit down after the election and think through exactly what drain the swamp means and how we're going to drain the swamp, which will be a huge challenge. But I am encouraged that we really have the most vivid, most exciting opportunity for reform of my entire lifetime, and that you have a matchup of the American people, and this is what Pat Caddell's article does, because he outlines polling data that is just overwhelming about the 75 to 85% majority that wants dramatic change, which is what he says.
By the way, it is telling that Hillary Clinton pulled the plug on her election night fireworks, and it is interesting that Chelsea, for over a decade, her and her family benefited so much financially from the Clinton Foundation, including her wedding dress, money that was, supposed to be used for poor people and good causes and rebuilding Haiti. The corruption is so bad. It is so unprecedented in my view.
No, I think that's right, and I think that we have learned that it is extensive. It's not just the Clintons, but it's virtually everything they've touched. There's no accident that the current Attorney General got her first big job from Bill Clinton. It's no accident that John Podesta and his brother have very close ties to the Russians. You go through item after item after item, and it makes you realize that we had better have, and Trump's speeches are correct about this, we had better have an election.
Yeah, you're breaking up, Mr. Speaker. All right, I hope we'll see. I hear you're trying to bail out of my show tonight. That can't happen.
No, I'm not bailing out of your show tonight. I'm trying to work out a way to do it, but I am literally landing as your show starts.
Well, okay, we'll work it out.
That's why I'm trying to convince your staff that if I phone in, it will count at least 50%.
Don't count 50. Oh, we forgot to mention New Hampshire. Trump needs New Hampshire bad. All right, Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Goodbye.